BYU, Texas Tech, UCF, Baylor, TCU. I've got good news for everybody, and it's because of Houston. This is the Locked On Big 12 Locked On Cougs crossover.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome into a Locked On Big 12 Locked On Cougs crossover. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. That is Parker Ainsworth of Locked On Cougs, who was in the house when Houston punched its ticket to the national championship, where we will start every Big 12 team, BYU to UCF to Baylor and Texas Tech, who have been here for a long time, have a rooting interest tonight in the national championship game. We all, as 16, get to come together and root for Houston. There's no some SEC fans like, oh, I don't root for Auburn because they're my rival. That doesn't occur in the Big 12. Houston's given us all a hope with the final game of college basketball this year. Then 8 minutes of unabridged, no sleep, emotional Parker Ainsworth talking about what he saw in the arena on Saturday night. And we'll finish with Houston will beat Florida. A deep breakdown of the analytics for that game. If you hit subscribe, we get to keep our jobs. Parker, every team, I've heard from BYU fans to Texas Tech fans who are all in the comment section saying, go Cougs, COOGS, rooting for Houston. It wasn't in this new era without Texas and Oklahoma. It wasn't Texas Tech. It wasn't Kansas State. It wasn't Oklahoma State who brought this league back to a revenue sport national championship. It was Houston. And now you get to be the center of the Big 12 universe in the biggest game of 2025 so far. What comes with that? This is spectacular.
It's why we wanted to be here in the first place. I know we've talked before about how Houston got left out in the 90s and all that. And it's been an open arms welcome to the conference. And honestly, I think it feels good for everyone else, too, to see that, hey, Houston just won this conference 2 years in a row and has kind of been really dominant. But they're also a very dominant team. It kind of validates the entire conference from top to bottom. And truthfully, it makes those close wins against Baylor and Waco. We're going to talk about toy poodles in a second, I imagine. Those close wins in Waco or close wins in Arizona, close wins in Fog Allen, all feel like, okay, those make a lot more sense now. Those teams were also good. Houston was just national championship level good. This toy poodle comment, can we read this out loud? I don't know what
you take it away, man. It's your comment to read.
We weren't 34-4 playing in the Toy Poodle League. We were 19-1 in the Big 12. Shout out to my Big 12 brethren from Kelvin Sampson. A lot of people are misconstruing this as far as like he was calling the ACC a Toy Poodle League, or he was calling the American a Toy Poodle League, when truthfully what he's saying is you guys don't talk about the Big 12 the right way. It's not just some throwaway conference. It's got blue bloods in it. It's got a real deal basketball presence, and they went 19-1 in it this year, undefeated on the road. He's touting, I think he's trying to tout the Big 12's credentials, not dismiss other people. But man, it's why you play in this conference. Is I don't know if you win the Final Four game, like the Duke game being crazy, without having played in this conference, right? If your best game before that had been Memphis, how can you be ready for what that was? Yeah,
it is a beautiful thing to see everyone unite here over Houston, Texas Tech, TCU, and Baylor being a national champion or in a championship in a revenue sport. All of those schools since 2019. No Texas and no A&M, two former Big 12 members. Houston doing that before Texas A&M in the Big 12 conference is crazy, but the Cougars are sitting right there. Parker, 4 years ago, 2021, 4 years ago in the Final Four, how different did that feel being a member of a conference with what we've mentioned it before, Memphis, and now being in a conference with Baylor and Texas Tech and TCU and feeling that sort of love from a league that has so many power schools?
Well, first of all, it would be that many more alumni of those schools. It's just a bigger populace of people.
Yep.
It's so many more passionate sports fans, and that's not necessarily to be a big, downward spiral for somebody else as much as it's like the Big 12's got big universities, big schools with big student bodies. There were a bunch of Tech fans sitting near me in my section at the Final Four game, and they were wearing red. It was Texas Tech red, but they were loudly cheering for Houston throughout that whole thing. I think it really is a passionate, for the seal kind of a thing that it didn't feel like happened in American at all. If anything happened, occasionally other St. Mary's of the world would be like, oh yeah, go for the little guys, but not from the conference by any stretch. And certainly not from a Memphis or anything.
Yep. I'm still buzzing over what happened. And I'm sure you are too. And we're going to get to your experience in that venue. Houston being at this level of college basketball. We've talked about conference affiliation, how excited everyone is. We've talked about the difference in Houston today than 4 years ago and the love that you get from your conference mates. But nationally, this kind of exposure is something that Houston has not gotten in a long time, maybe since 1984. Genuinely, it could be that long since they were at the forefront of college basketball the way they are today. Give me the emotion's a word I've used so far, but really the deep-seated feeling of being on ESPN, on CBS, everywhere as the school who's in the national championship.
Well, it's just something that Houston's not used to. And it's, again, why you join the Big 12, why you sign up for this conference and get that kind of preparation to get into these moments. Because we had Case Keenum come through. That was awesome. Houston played in a Peach Bowl in the 2010s, right? Speaking of Case Keenum, they've been to a lot of big time moments and platforms and stuff like that in sports in the last 15 years, but they just kind of good for the little guy. Whereas now that Houston's done it in the Big 12, Houston's done it in the Big 12 conference, done it in very dominant fashion, and is playing on Monday night in April, it feels like there's a lot more seriousness to it. People are talking about how Houston can win, what Houston can do, how Houston can dominate. And that's not to say some of the worldwide leaders in sports didn't still spend most of their time talking about Duke losing. Duke is Duke. Duke gets clicks. And I hope Cooper Flagg has a long, illustrious NBA career, hopefully for the Houston Rockets even, where they talk about but he had to get over that one thing that happened to him in the Final Four, because that would just make the story go that much longer, frankly.
No doubt. And now with Houston in the national championship, I want to go backward a little bit to the game against Duke, the final 5 minutes where Parker Ainsworth was in the football stadium. I don't know if I could call it an arena. He was in the football stadium where Houston got it done. This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Cougs crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Well, madness. Houston over Duke and a massive upset. But your tax season does not have to be exactly madness with TurboTax. TurboTax is what I use. Again, I'm hand up, 24 years old. I don't really know what I'm doing all the time, my money stuff. But this message from Intuit TurboTax is what I've been waiting on. Taxes was wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress. You can focus on your day. An expert who will find every deduction possible with 100% accuracy. All so you can get your money back and the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. That is TurboTax. Parker, you were in the venue when Houston upset Duke. And let's take that out of context. Let's pretend that that's the sentence and you just woke up from a coma and didn't watch the game. You're like, yeah, I could see Houston beating Duke. That's possible. But then when I give you the context of down by 6, Duke has the ball 40 seconds to go, or even down by 6, Houston has the ball 33 seconds to go, or there's a missed shot on Houston's opportunity before that putback, and Duke's got another chance at a rebound to put the game away, then the Cougars win it. I want to know what you're feeling at the 8-minute mark when you're down 14.
8 minutes down 14, I'm really trying to like find because I'm there with my dad and we got given a pair of tickets, and it was an awesome experience. Shout out to Michael Brown for the tickets. And we get there and I'm sitting there like, okay, like my dad and I are having a great day. I can't let this ruin the day. Like I can't let a 14, like, okay, it happens, not every team wins their last game. I know, like talk myself up. And then it gets cut to 6 and Emmanuel shoots that 3 and I'm like, no, we're winning. Like this is over. Like it was as soon as Emmanuel let that one fly, I felt really, really confident. Just a full 180 in a short stretch. I want to say that you mentioned going into the break that it was a football stadium. 68,000 plus was the official reported attendance. I think a lot of the Auburn and Florida fans actually stayed, it looked like, just in looking at the sea of people. And it felt kind of quiet, honestly, for basically the first 37 minutes, because it was a lot of Houston fans. It's only about a 2.5 hour drive or so from campus to stadium. And it's like, well, what is there to cheer for? They're not playing very well. They can't make any shots. Duke's kind of getting what they want on offense. And then about the 5-minute mark, it kind of started getting a little bit louder as the lead started chipping away. And then you mentioned the dunk, but it was like the Emmanuel Sharp 3, like the possession before that, it erupted. It was just bonkers, crazy loud. I mean, it felt like all 68,000. No, mathematically, it was not all 68,000 people cheering for Houston, but it felt like all 68,000 just going crazy. Like, they're really going to do this. They're really going to pull this off. And it felt like we hadn't seen Duke score in a long time. And so then walking out of the stadium, I checked Twitter. I was like, oh, they scored one field goal in the final 9.5 minutes or whatever, or 10 or whatever it was. Like that wasn't just the way it felt. That's what really, really happened. Man, there was so many moments, right? Because even then, like, Malik Wilson has the steal, or the steal happens and falls back in Malik Wilson's hands. And we're all having like split-second flashbacks to when Malik Wilson hit the shot against Kansas to force double overtime, right? Yeah. He steps back behind the three-point line and he misses. And there's like a split second, like, oh, this isn't Kansas. And then JoJo Tugler dunks the putback. And we're just like, oh my God. Like the whole stadium's going crazy from that moment on as well. Just back and forth. And then when Cooper Flagg misses, you got Juwan covering him, and that 6th-year senior versus kid that just turned 18, like a young freshman. And he misses, and they're, frankly, if I'm being honest, you kind of anticipate Duke getting a whistle there. So I think everyone's kind of holding their breath, like, is Duke going to get the Duke whistle here? Like, what's going to happen? And they don't. Houston gets the rebound, and it takes Duke, I think, a split second to realize what happens, because they get the ball to Cryer, who's the best shooter on the team, best shooter in America in a lot of ways. And it gets to Cryer 4 free throws when they foul him finally. It's like Duke didn't know what to do there. It was Cryer goes to the line, makes his free throws. I just felt chaos. Just felt like chaos. Those final, I guess it was like 75 seconds or something. Just nuts. Nuts.
I think I was counting points missed by Houston, which I tend to do as a basketball fan. I watch, and Tugler misses a wide open dunk, and there are a couple opportunities for layups that don't go. And every time LJ Cryer misses a free throw, I'm cringing, because the guy makes them so often. And in the biggest moment, he misses a couple in the middle of this game. And I'm thinking, wow, Houston's not getting as many trips to the line. They've missed a couple close-up shots. And Duke's playing really good perimeter defense. You're going to have to take whatever they give you. And then once the full court press was put on by Sampson there at the end, I'm also screaming with 1:10 to go, foul, please. Duke has the ball. They're running the clock out. Kelvin Sampson says, don't foul. If the Blue Devils score there, this game is likely over. And then down the stretch, of course, it's Juwan Roberts and LJ Cryer made free throws that put this thing away and help you beat Duke. Give me the reaction of the stadium, because I've been in a couple games where massive moment, one team at the highest high, the other team the lowest low, and the entire arena is just filled with this hodgepodge of chaos that brings you to a moment that is unexplainable in sports. When the buzzer sounded and that shot did not go from Proctor, just every piece of every fiber of your being, how do you describe it?
Well, it's funny. The section I was sitting in, the Proctor shot looked like it had some potential about halfway up the air, just from the angle I'm sitting in. And so like, oh my God. And then when it goes over the backboard, the whole, there was a moment of holding your breath because it would have been very Duke to hit that shot and force overtime, right? It would have been very Duke, very Mike Krzyzewski's Duke anyway. And then he chucks it from half court and it misses. And it is just chaos, hands in the air, people can run hugging one another, the high fives, the screaming, the one fellow who was sitting in our row had gotten up to get an adult beverage earlier in the game, and Houston had kind of made a run while he was up. And so he stayed down in the tunnel, and then he came back at halftime, and Houston got down double digits. He goes, I'm going to go back to the tunnel. And he just got to walk over the tunnel.
No way.
And so then he spent the last 8 minutes of the game from the tunnel going crazy, screaming, and I don't know him by anything other than Tunnel Guy, but Tunnel Guy might have saved the day, Drake. Sports are weird like that. Who knows what it takes sometimes? He certainly thought he won the game by going to the tunnel, and who might argue with him?
I wouldn't. It's those people that take their sports that seriously that make this all the more cool. Duke. Now that Duke is out, their fans can go back rooting for the Yankees or the Dodgers or Tom Brady's Patriots. They're still watching those reruns, I'm sure. Parker, you didn't beat FAU. You didn't even beat UConn. You didn't beat even Texas Tech, who's been in the Elite Eight for a handful of years, the past few. And I'll put it like in Arkansas in that boat too, right? There are schools where had you won this game the way you did, it would have been so awesome. But you did it against the pinnacle of college basketball the last 40 years, the Duke Blue Devils. You did it against the Alabama in football, the one school everybody wants to beat in the biggest moment, who is the number one Ken Pom team of all time. How much of this being against Duke added to the Final Four experience and the experience of this win?
Okay, so full disclosure, I've always hated Duke. I don't know.
Don't tell Cameron Stewart that. Do not tell Cameron Stewart that. I'm
a little older than you, but when I was a kid, ESPN loved the Duke Carolina rivalry, adequately so. It's a great rivalry in sports, and the JJ Redick years, and it was kind of growing up on top of whoever you rooted for. You were a Duke person or a Carolina person, and Carolina being the school that integrated its basketball team much earlier than Duke, and the school that is a public university and light blue, Jordan, whatever, Vince Carter, all the things. I was much more of a Carolina guy. I've always hated Duke, and that it's against, especially then you factor in last year's Sweet 16, Jamal Shead hurts his ankle in the Sweet 16 game against Duke. A lot different roster, obviously, but the same jerseys, and it's the same, fear of all that and everything. Just crazy that it got to happen against Duke, because we've heard about Duke since Cooper Flagg reclassified and committed. Like this was going to be a historic level Duke team all week. It was about Duke is the best team of all time, and their losses are times where they beat themselves and yada yada da 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 and all this kind of. And that it happened against Duke, I think, makes it that much sweeter. Never mind that we've got this Big 12 ACC kind of thing going where it felt weird that the ACC got as many teams in as they did and all that nonsense, right? It was really special that it was against Duke for a lot of reasons, both personally and for the program. It was awesome to see Duke go home. A lot of Duke fans in the state of Texas. You lived here for a second in Texas.
Fans.
They're
quote unquote fans.
It's crazy how that brand travels. And I don't think they actually, it's like you said, the air quotes, they didn't all go there. They like certain things about that basketball team, and that's just crazy. Yep.
There's a lot of t-shirt fans for Duke. It's similar to the University of Texas, where you're like, you have no relation to this. You shouldn't, no one went to the school, yet they still root for Duke, and Houston got to silence that crowd last night. Coming up, Houston will win against Florida. Let's prove it on a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Cougars crossover. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Like I have said before, I'm not great with the whole money thing. Like I look at my bank account and I wonder, where did all of it go? But thanks to Monarch Money, now I can spend smart. Your personal CFO is Monarch Money, giving you full visibility. It's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial control center. Spending too much in one place? Well, Monarch Money is going to keep you accountable with that. You can actually see, hey, I'm putting a lot towards delivery on food. Don't have to anymore. All-in-one convenience. Don't have to juggle multiple apps. It gives you your long-term goals. It tracks your spending, checks your finances, and you can manage your money with your partner. That's smoother than ever to set goals and stay on the same page. Take control of your finances on Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year with Monarch Money. Parker Ainsworth of Locked On Cougs joining us. It is Houston. It is Florida. It's the national championship tonight. The Cougars are right in the thick of it. And if you ask the advanced analytics, like I always love to do, they would tell you that this game will end in a tie, 75-75, which we can't do. There's 0.4 points of separation between Florida and Houston per shot quality. Houston is a 1-point underdog according to Las Vegas. And they just beat the number one Ken Pom team of all time in dramatic fashion. Give me from an injury standpoint to the way that Florida plays. I know that we're a quick turnaround into this game. What gives you the confidence Houston is going to win?
You know, even in some of their biggest wins, Florida has had stretches where they kind of didn't play their best basketball, whether it was the Tech game, they're down 10. They played a close one with a bad Maryland team earlier in the tournament. They got blitzed by a Tennessee team that Houston beat actually in the Elite Eight. And so I feel like part of this will be like what Florida shows up for the full 40 minutes and how much of the game which Florida shows up and all of that. Obviously, like the biggest thing is going to be how do you make the Walter Clayton Jr. kid take tough shots.
Yeah.
He's really good, and I don't mean to say that he's not. But we also saw Houston just play Cooper Flagg, scored 27 points, and he had 24 of them in the first 30 minutes of the game, and it didn't seem to matter. Houston found a way to win that one as well. I think the biggest thing that makes me confident about this one, though, is really it's not an analytical detail or a certain set or a matchup as much as in the Sweet 16 to Elite 8, Houston had a less than 36-hour turnaround between a after midnight finish and a like 1 o'clock start time on Sunday. They went from beating Purdue at the end with a great baseline inbounds play to then coming out and boat racing Tennessee on Sunday. I'm not predicting a boat race, but that way the quick turnaround, the focus, like there's something culturally about being able to get your guys back on track very quickly and kind of keep the eyes on the prize. Cool moments after the game where the guys are coming off the floor and their handshake line is like Hakeem Olajuwon and Jim Nance. And like, this is, a very calm, like they have their cheering and celebrating and then they're stepping on the floor. They just like their demeanor changes. They're back to being calm. Then just like one more back and forth with Hakeem and Jim Nance is on their way off. And it's quite a couple names. Clyde Drexler's there and all that stuff too, but it's very focused energy around Houston right now. So you and I can sit here and enjoy it. They're working on stuff. That's a whole different set of things.
Yeah, kind of crazy that you have to wake up and now scheme against the team that many people in the country have as their national champion. I actually, in my bracket, which I'm going to win my bracket pools if Houston wins here. I have Florida and Houston in the national championship. I was one team off from having a perfect Final Four. So I love that this is the game. This is the matchup that Houston gets. And some advanced analytics faith that I want to give Houston Cougars fan, according to Shot Quality, who, again, many NBA teams use as their advanced analytics site. They say the Florida defense is 60th in the country, which the Florida defense has not been very good this year. That's not how they've made their bed. The Houston offense is 11th in the nation. And you saw again yesterday, they talked about it pregame. This isn't the Houston of 4 or 5 years ago. It's not the Houston you typically hear of great defense, no offense. That is a 49 spot gap between Florida's defense and Houston's offense analytically. I think the Cougars, if they hit, and they didn't even shoot very well against Duke, if they hit their average, have the offense to make this a non-competitive game or win by double digits against Florida.
Yeah, I think a lot of people look at Houston's offense in terms of just like raw score and like say, well, they win games in the 60s. They must not be able to score very well. And they play the 360th pace in America. They play a really slow pace with very few shots, very few possessions. And so that's how you get to having scores in the 60s. It's not because they're not very efficient. They got 3 guys shoot 40% or better from 3 in their backcourt. And then frankly, it's funny, look at their shot distribution. Those are kind of the only guys that really even shoot threes threes because they're really disciplined in what they do and don't take. And truthfully, I think that like Houston's actually like the shot quality thing would demonstrate more close to an elite offensive team that just doesn't shoot many shots. They use 25 seconds off a shot clock and have less possessions in a game because they'd rather win in a slower, controlled environment. And Florida kind of wants to run. I don't know how much Florida you're going to watch thus far, Drake. I'm sure someone following all, but you watched at least the Tech game, right? Florida wants to run, and they want to run fast, and they want to play with a lot of possessions. And that difference, I think, could shape things up. I would think 2 days after the Final Four that leans Houston, but obviously I think it's going to be a good game, and I don't think they're going to blow anyone out or anything like that.
The only area where I may push back a bit, and as someone who coaches, I think the team that plays better defense, it can wear you out faster. Playing this fast pace of offense, you're watching a run and gun 3-point shooting team, your legs can stay loose because it's fun. Playing the defense Houston plays is not very fun until the game is over and you've won. In the middle of it, it is a knockdown drag out. But like you mentioned, they blew out Tennessee on short rest, playing the brand of defense that Kelvin Sampson plays. Somebody tweeted that Houston practices are just endless suicides and guys punching each other in the face the entire time.
Which felt like a spy. That guy's been inside.
Yeah, that's watching them play basketball. It's just the way the Cougars have done it this year, and it's worked so far. Defensively, you're playing the number 2 offense in the country, and I'm still not worried. I don't think there's any team after the beating Duke that could worry me offensively against the Houston defense, but I do circle, and I want to go back to something in those advanced analytics, the Houston offense's inability to get to the free throw line. Their free throw rate is 327th in the country right now. They don't get to the line a ton. When they do, they make it at a decent rate, but not an elite rate. If Florida gets a happy whistle, and Duke had way more free throws than Houston, if the Gators go to the line 15 more times than the Cougars, that's where this thing could get tough.
And Houston's going to foul. They probably, even in an evenly called game, would have a few more fouls and give up a few more free throws. That's just part of the nature of the way they play. I think the deal there is going to be a lot of that does stem from their inside shot layups or on steals turning into fast breaks, and you don't get a whole lot of fouls on those. And then they shoot a lot of threes. You don't see a whole lot of fouls on threes. I don't know what it is about Jawan Roberts. I don't know what data point would point to this. He's like a 60% free throw shooter on the season, but when it's in the last 2 minutes of an important game, I kind of want him to have the ball. I've never seen anything like it, but him the last couple of years where it's like, okay, I want them to foul him because I don't care what he's done up to that point. He like has a different level of focus as a 60-year guy at that point in the game, and he put him ahead with free throws in the Final Four game just like that.
Parker, it's Houston and it's Florida in the national championship tonight. At the time of recording, just to kind of peel back the curtain here, we are still about 32 hours away from first tip. Do you have an initial prediction to give for the game that will, by the time this airs, be tonight?
Yeah, I'm going again in the 60s. I'm thinking it's 68-64 Houston. I think that's eerily close to what I said about Houston and Duke. And I think that really speaks to Houston having more control of the pace against another elite offense. Both teams, I think, will be efficient in how they score, but I think Houston's going to be able to grind it out and make it a slower game. And then, if I'm being honest, there are a lot of people on my social media timelines right now talking about getting their cars and getting to San Antonio from Houston. We mentioned I had to run back home and got work Monday. I'm like, do I leave early and get down? Like, I'm already trying to figure out what I do. All kinds of chaos with all that. But I think it's going to be a very red crowd. A lot of second market tickets from all those random Duke fans, right? Ditching their tickets now all of a sudden. Game time would be the place to go for that, I guess, right? So I feel like Houston's going to have some advantages in all that. And so I'm thinking 68-64 Cougs.
Well, as someone who has seen his college, while in college, win the national championship, it's about as torn as you can be because you want to be with your family and your loved ones, and at the same time, you want to be in the arena and say that you saw it. So I don't think any option is a bad option, but being there and saying that you were there is an experience that you'll never regret. Parker, where can folks find more of your Houston coverage? I know you'll be live at the very least from the seat of a car after this game's over.
We'll be live somehow, some way after it's over. All things, just like find Locked On Big 12 at Locked On Cougs. On Twitter and stuff like that, I'm at Painsworth512. I'll be tweeting throughout the game and stuff like that. I feel like there's gonna be I just got so many thoughts with a lot coming out in the next 24 hours about this game, and then hopefully a lot of recaps throughout the week about the historic season that was, because it feels like a once in a lifetime kind of year.
Well, we will catch up with you before the parade, no doubt. We'll do a recap later in the week. That's Parker Ainsworth of Locked On Cougs. Make sure to check out all of his content as he follows Houston so closely this week. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.